Hey, welcome to Barn Tech. Today we're going to charge the air conditioner for my 2009 Ford Super Duty. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the air box off so that we can get to the charging port that's back there. There's two charging ports on the system and we want to get to both of them. Now there's two different sizes here for the R134 fittings, and so the high pressure fitting is a little bigger than the low pressure fitting. So I can just pull back that quick connect and push it on, and it should just pop right on. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull a vacuum on this system. So I pulled the cab off of the truck, and so air was able to get into all of the refrigerant lines. And here's an example of what air does to things if you leave them exposed to it for a long time. The same thing happens inside your air conditioning system. If you allow a little bit of moisture inside your air conditioning system, it's going to, over time, react with all of the various metal pieces inside the air conditioner. When the air compressor kicks on, I'm going to shut the valves real quickly so that it doesn't suck some of that moisture back up into the system. It'll take several times, but this way gets it done for me. It just takes a little longer. It's kind of a pain. So you can see here just in those first couple of seconds that I pulled vacuum on the system, it pumped it down to 20 inches of mercury. I don't have a micron gauge, so we're not going to be able to do that in the barn today. The way that I was taught to do it was to pull a vacuum on the system for 20 or 30 minutes, and then you're able to charge the system back up again. So the air compressor's recharged, so let's go for round two. So after 2 rounds of vacuum, it's still holding a little over 20 inches of mercury, so that's doing really well. So we're ready to do round 3. Round 4, fight! Okay, so over the course of 20 or 30 minutes, I've pulled down vacuum on the system 10 times. So the first couple of times that I pumped vacuum on the system, what I noticed is that it would pump down to about 22 inches of vacuum. And then when I would shut off the valves, it would slowly creep down to about 20 inches of vacuum. Now, the last several times that I've pumped it down, it's held the 22 inches of vacuum in between pumps. So I think I've got everything out of there that I'm going to get out of there now. But I'm just going to go ahead and hook up the vacuum pump one last time. This time, instead of running it until the compressor kicks on, I'll run it about 10 seconds to reach maximum vacuum, and then I'll disconnect. There we go, system is vacuumed out, and now I need to go get the scale so we can weigh in the charge. All right, so my truck's held about 22 inches of mercury vacuum for about 30 minutes, so I know that all of the seals in the system are good. So now it's time to charge it up. Now, unfortunately, the can tap that I have for R134A is not compatible with my manifold here. So I'm going to just have to use this little can tap here and hook up to the low pressure fitting. This is what the sticker on the core support says, that it needs 1.69 pounds of refrigerant. I used Google to translate that to 27.04 ounces. Now each can has about 12 ounces of refrigerant in it. So that means that I need a little more than 2 cans of refrigerant. I was reading in the Bible this morning in Psalm 119, and verse 105 said, "Your word, God's word, is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." All right, I've got my first can hooked up to the vacuum port here. I've got the can sitting on a scale, and the scale says that this can has 9.45 ounces in it, which is probably about right because this can was almost empty when I started. Okay, after re-zeroing the scale, now it's saying 9.0 ounces for this first can. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by charging liquid into the system. So I'm going to hold the can upside down like this, and I'm going to press the valve here until we get the first couple of cans in there. There's really no sense in even running the engine. So the compressor won't even cycle on and off like that. The can now says that it's 4.94. We're going to call it 5.0 ounces just to keep the math easy. All right, thank you, Mr. Moore, who taught my middle school math class. My can started with 9 ounces. It ended with 5 ounces. And so I know that I put 4 ounces of refrigerant into the system. So I can come over here and take that 27 ounces that the system needs. I can say minus 4. And so I know that the system still needs 23 ounces of refrigerant. So that is almost 2 full cans of refrigerant that I still need to put into the system. All right, so we're gonna see how much this can weighs before we start. It says 15.98, so I'm just gonna write down 16.0 ounces. All right, I wrote that down, and I know the system needs this whole can, so I'm just gonna go ahead and dump the whole can in as liquid. So I shook the can a little bit, and what happens if there's still a little liquid in there, the liquid sloshes up against the sides and makes that part of the can cold. As I shake it, I don't feel the refrigerant sloshing around in there anymore. So I think that entire can is in the system now. All right, there it's stabilized at 4.48. So I'm gonna write down 4.5 ounces. Can 2 started at 16 ounces. When I ended up, after dumping all the refrigerant from can 2 in, can 2 was 4.5 ounces. And so that tells me that 11.5 ounces is how much refrigerant I put into the system with can 2. Subtract that out, and now 11.5 ounces is how much I need out of can 3. Thanks to my wife for letting me borrow her scale here to measure the weights of these cans. Honey, I promise I'll wipe it down with Clorox before I bring it back in the kitchen. Here it's saying 16.9 ounces. So I'm gonna go write that 16.9 down. And let's dump some liquid in there. I can feel a little liquid sloshing around in there. I'm gonna stop and weigh the can real quick and see where we are because I don't want to overcharge it. Weight's still fluctuating around a little bit. That may actually be due to the liquid in this little section of line here vaporizing and going into the system. So it seems to be stabilizing at around 6.3 ounces. So I'm gonna do the math real quick and see what I want this can to weigh when I'm done. Okay, real quick before I finish putting can 3 in, if can 3 started at 16.9 ounces and I want to put 11.5 ounces of refrigerant in, subtract that, can 3 should weigh 5.4 ounces when I'm done. So I'm going to put a little bit more refrigerant in. Right now, can 3 is at about 6 ounces. So I'm gonna put another ½ ounce in and we should be done. Press the lever, I can hear the refrigerant going out. Stop and weigh it. Now I may have overshot just a little bit. It's sitting at 5.0 ounces right now. So it's going to be just a little bit overcharged, but that's pretty close, and I think that's going to work pretty well. So the temperature in here is 50 degrees according to this thing. After running for a minute or two, it's now at 32.3 degrees. So that's about as good as it's going to get. So hey, if you've enjoyed watching my video, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Or if you're not ready for that, watch one of these other videos that should be popping up now. God bless.